So my name is Sana, and I'm going to be actually relating to you guys an experience that I had. It's a story. I'm telling a story. And it is a very interesting interaction that I saw, and it had a profound impact on me, and it really made me appreciate the simplicity of human interaction. It also made me realize how increasingly privatized our public lives are becoming. So I hope you enjoyed. I hope you're able to take away even just a little bit of what I was able to take away that summer, not too long ago. So I ran. I wasn't in that sort of rush that usually accompanies 5 p.m. on a weekday, much like those around me. But I hate being that slow walker that everyone dreams of kind of smacking across the head. So I ran. I had just exited from my connecting train and was approaching the platform at Bury UChem, headed towards the direction of Angrenal. All of a sudden, my pace, along with the pace of all those around me, became one of curious hesitance. We all just stopped. We all just looked at this one image before us. Our eyes were completely fixated by this one image before us. Her. I don't know who she was, where she was going, or where she was coming from, but I couldn't tear my eyes away from her. None of us could. She was about 5'4", 5'7", in a simple black shoe heel, resonant of the 1995 heel shoe style, meaning block heel, very simple, nothing fancy. She was wearing a straight A-shape gray skirt, which had straight folds in it, which gave it a look of some serious grandeur. She was wearing a black semi-turtleneck shirt, which was also 3/4 length arms, and it was tightly tucked into her skirt, which again came right above the navel area. And in her right arm hung a very simple black purse, very small, very simple. She was softly pale, none of that fluorescent pale, right? Very softly pale. And her hair was also very softly blonde, which would seem to have absolutely no visible treatment other than that of a comb. She had this model-esque persona without the visible ribs or contract. Needless to say, I felt that all of us on those two platforms at Bury UChem, were unfit to be her surroundings. It was so weird. I just felt inadequate somehow to be in her surroundings. The men in particular were very interesting. They were completely enamored and fixated by her. They were engulfed by her. They were attracted, not aroused by her. She didn't allow for arousal. She did. She did not allow for arousal. But she didn't demand attraction either. She was just standing there awaiting her train. And she didn't batter a single eyelash, and she didn't share a single smirk. She stood there in complete silence, waiting. With my gawking soon discovered, I quickly took out 100 Years of Solitude, not autobiographical yet, from my purse, and quickly, sought haven in the publishing days. Very interesting stuff, by the way, if you're in an awkward enough position, publishing days, think about it. And, I looked down, I was like, I'm not going to, she saw me, how awkward is that? And, yeah, it's pretty awkward. And all of a sudden, my nosy eyes wandered in her direction again because, again, she was that irresistible, something about her. And they saw this man, a generally thought of as unattractive man, the kind of man that, vain women such as myself would run in the other direction from. And he had a bit of a pot belly, and he was bald, and whatever remaining hair that was there was of the greasy persuasion, hadn't been washed in a while. He was also dressed as though he, hadn't really awoken quite yet. Like he was still in that grease mode, and he was completely engulfed in this one book that he was reading. I don't know what it was. It was leather bound, it was thick, and he was reading it, and he approached her without looking up once, because he was completely engulfed, again, in this book. And he was one foot away from her shoulder to shoulder. I was about 6 feet. Kind of figured this out now. And it was so interesting to see this man completely engulfed in this book. He didn't even look up once to see who was standing next to. I mean, it was interesting because all of us on those or most of us, I should say, I can't say all of us. Most of us on those two platforms had temporarily forgotten our little private havens that we usually create when we go out in public. You know, our headphones were out. Our cell phones, if we were able to get reception at Barry UCAM, were down. I wasn't reading my book anymore. You know, no one was writing in their journal. No one was trying to avoid whatever, you know, interaction that comes naturally with being in the public. But for some reason, this woman was able to break us away from that, except for this one man. And then, to the shock of every subatomic particle on those two platforms, she spoke to him. She turned to him, and I don't mean turn like this. I mean she turned completely towards him, completely. She turned her entire being towards him and asked him what book he was reading. And that man, God bless his willpower, I tell you this, he didn't even look up at her. Maybe he did a bit of a nonchalant kind of glance, nothing really major. He was reading his book, and he just kind of turned the cover, kind of like read it yourself, showed the cover, and went back to reading. And she, yeah, right? Went back to reading, and she smiled and said thank you, mumbled something else, and went back to her previous silence. And I smiled at that because I didn't know what it was that I had just experienced with all these complete strangers around me, but I knew that there was something really profound that I would probably write about later. And I just felt like the interaction was saying something a lot more than just, what book are you reading? Our trains arrived, and her and I, the amazing woman, and I got onto we were in the same car. And she sat down, I was standing up. And I once again, feeling like a prepubescent boy, I sought haven in the publishing dates of 100 Years of Solitude. And I, you know, of course, nosy eyes, went towards her direction once again. First time, she was sitting there in complete peace. And you could tell the people who were sitting there were kind of like, how are you at complete peace at 5'10"? You know, did you not just get off work or something? Why are you at such complete peace? But she was at complete peace. I don't even know how I could describe that other than that. And then I quickly looked away after noticing that. And then a second flash of my eyes was met by her soft blue stare. And she smiled at me, and I almost involuntarily returned the favor. My stop came, and I got off at Peel. But before exiting, I took one last look at her. To look at this woman who had, in this most bizarre way, completely disrupted my routine and really disrupted my day in a good way. And I left, I turned away, and I merged into the sea of headphones before me. Thank you.